Howie Marcus.
When Buster said he was going to introduce me, I didn't know what he was going to say. But I signed the check, so I know it had to be okay, you know, with that. First, this is a long session, so there's a big I really screen answer your question there. A little bit different. Within the past 2 weeks, things have changed in the education department. And then I was going to do the middle. So things have changed. Howie's a little bit busier now that he kind of has taken on a little bit new role. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play a video. Howie Morales came into our office and JP videotaped him. He has a message for you. So we're going to play a little video from Howie Morales, our Lieutenant Governor, who, as you guys know, was a teacher, was a coach, and he is a friend of education. And so, Tyler, if you want to go ahead and get started, and you can hear a message from Howie.
Good morning, coaches and athletic directors. I'm Howie Morales, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of New Mexico. I want to first of all say thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of communities, parents, and most importantly, students in the state of New Mexico. I've been in your shoes before, and I know the amount of work that goes into that. Time taken away from your family, time taken away from other things that you may be doing, but instead you choose to make a difference in the lives of children across the state. And I'm very grateful for the work that you do. You know, had the mentality that we were going to have a second to none attitude. And the same goes in everything that we do. In the state of New Mexico, first and foremost, the work that you do is the work of education and working collaboratively on the field, on the courts, in the classroom, really does lend itself to the possibilities of having that second to none attitude. And I know that during the time that you spend making a difference in the lives of children, I know many times it may not seem that the work that you do is really noticed or acknowledged, but I want to say that it truly is, because I know the difference that you make and the impact that you make is lifelong meaningful to those students and those athletes that you work with on a day-to-day basis. I want to share just a little bit about the vision of education in the state of New Mexico. During this time as Lieutenant Governor, I've really made it a point to work with our public education department, along with our governor, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, to ensure that we have an education system that is engaging for students. For far too long, we've been chasing student achievement, student test scores, and really not recognizing the full potential that we can get to. I believe by realizing and focusing on student engagement, that not only are we going to meet expectations, we're going to surpass them. And I think that this is a responsibility of all of us as educators to have engagement. You do that on a daily basis. When you're working with students all across New Mexico, you're engaging them in areas of their interest. You're making them work hard. You're making them push beyond the barriers that they thought that they can even accomplish. Even though there are many obstacles, you're there to help guide them. That's why you're the coaches. That's why you're the athletic directors of the communities. And that alone holds so much prestige in each of the areas that you come from. I want to share that when we talk about our role as coaches, Lieutenant Governor, different capacities that we have within the state of New Mexico, it's always important to remember why we do the things that we do. And the reality of it is that we're in the service industry. We're providing service, and there is no higher purpose in this life than to provide service to others. And I can tell you that as an agency and Department of Public Education, as well as our administration, we want to ensure that we're always going to be a resource, that we're going to ensure that we're there providing service to all those that are needing that assistance. I'm excited about the possibilities that we have in working in collaboration with each one of you. I would also like to send a challenge out to each one of you to help in dealing with some of the major problems we have in the state of New Mexico. One of those areas that we've identified as a huge problem is poverty. And along with poverty comes the issue of childhood hunger. It's no secret that we've ranked 50th in child well-being for years. We want to reverse that. And with your help, we can meet those expectations by working together. I know as a coach, there was many times that we were asked to do service projects. There were many opportunities that we had to go out in the community and really make a difference. I'm asking each one of you, as you look for possibilities of service to your communities, that you take the challenge of really attacking the issue of childhood hunger and poverty across our communities, volunteering, having food drives, doing things like that throughout our school communities really does have an impact, because let's face it, communities revolve around their local schools. And so I believe that the role that you have as a leader in your community, as a coach of your program, as an athletic director in your school district, that you would join with the public education department and you would join with me and the governor in really addressing this. I know that there's going to be creative ways of how to do so, and that's what makes it so special, is because each one of you are experts. Each one of you knows about strategizing. Each one of you knows about collaboration and communication. And so I'm excited for this possibility as we turn the corner in New Mexico, a brand new day, a new start for our state, to recognize that whether it's on the athletic field, whether it's in the classroom, in the business industry, our economy, we want to make sure that that second to none shines through in everything that we do. Again, I want to say thank you for the countless hours that you put in, the difference that you make in people's lives, and I want to say to continue to do so, and that all you do is to ensure that we recognize we're in this together. Thank you.
Testing. As you see, we have an advocate up there in the governor's office with Howie Morales, and as he says, he is your friend. He understands what you go through, so it's just really nice to hear from him. We're going to go into bylaws. I've done this before. Every year we're going to change it up this year a little bit. We're going to really focus in on some new things that are coming your way that you need to know about that begin next year. And again, please stop me, and if you want to go off the topic and ask questions, make sure you raise your hand, and we'll just make this a back and forth so you understand. In Section 6 and Section 7, coaches, that is the main sections that you need to make sure you read. I know it's dry, and it's like sometimes you don't even understand what it's saying, but at least attempt to get in there so you understand a little bit when it comes to parents' questions. You will get a lot of questions about eligibility, about transfers, so on and so forth. What we say in this situation is it's best to understand it, but anytime you get a question of eligibility, or I want to come play for you, or I want to come to your program, send it the parent right to the athletic director. You don't want anything to do with a parent coming that's outside your district and wanting to come to your school. Because what will happen, there'll be like inducement, like you guys are basically trying to recruit them by answering some of those questions. Even though you want to be nice, just be very vague, but always send them to the athletic director. But Section 6 and Section 7 are the sections that you need to make sure that you understand. Undue influence. Last year, at this time in June, there was a new bylaw that was put in place. We've always had the undue influence bylaw. However, a piece was added last summer. Since it was added last summer, it was very difficult to use it this year because people had already transferred and kids were already in school. Beginning right now, any kids going to your school, this inducement, undue influence, is not only a direct undue influence, and when I said direct, that means you as coaches. Kids can become eligible. You could be put on the spot if it is an indirect recruitment. Where does indirect come in? Examples. Parents. Parents recruiting others to come to your school that are not in your district. Hey, parents are going to be the ones that you're really going to have to talk to about. AAU club coaches. What goes on right now, and everybody says, how's your summer? Did you take some time off? No, not really, because all I have been doing is been dealing with club activities. Because what's going on is these club teams, what they're doing, the club coaches, the parents, they are indirectly influencing them to stay together as a team and go to one school. And that is going on. With this new bylaw, they are not going to be able to do that. So you really have to look at this indirect, direct bylaw that's going on out there. For an example, I was dealing with somebody the other day because indirectly an assistant coach had a 6th grader play in an AAU tournament with the high school team that was not in their district. Okay, the kid's going to be in 7th grade. Now, the head coach did not do that. The head coach was in California. The assistant coach asked this going to be 7th grader to come to open gym in the summer, and next thing you know, the kid has a uniform on and is in a tournament with that high school team over the weekend. Okay, so what's the situation there? Well, there's undue influence. If this kid decides that they want to go to that high school, now you have an indirect, which is the assistant coach, that has recruited this kid to go to the high school, because direct and indirect starts beginning with the 7th grade year. This kid is going to be going into 7th grade. So at this point, here we have a 12 and 13-year-old and a parent who just sees their kid, and every parent sees their kid as a D1 athlete, as you know, who sees their kid as a D1 athlete, and she needs to go ahead and play with better people. So what has happened there is, because the parent and the assistant coach, now I've got a 12 and 13-year-old that basically by our bylaws has been indirectly influenced to go to a high school. And so that is where that indirect head coach is. You need to be aware of what's going on. As I said, this head coach was in California and had no idea. It is your program. You are in charge of your program and everything that goes around. Don't turn a blind eye to parents that you know parents are talking and recruiting kids for you. Don't turn a blind eye, because that's what this indirect bylaw is going on. Let kids go where they want to go. You don't need to influence. What you need to do is be the best coach that you can be. And when you're the best coach that you can be and you run a clean program, that is when the kids are going to come to you. You don't have to recruit. You don't have to get those kids. They're going to come to you and want to play for you. So that's your job there. So any questions on direct or indirect? I gave you an example of what I was dealing with, some of the stuff this summer. Any questions? Correct. Correct. So you're in a community and you have open gym and the cousin's coming and people are coming and you guys are just playing up and down. That's fine. Or if a kid plays in a tournament with you because they're in there for the summer, or you needed a couple players to come, that's okay. It's when after that happens, the kid now decides they're going to come play for you and transfer to your school. That's where the violation comes in. So I'm not saying don't have kids come to open gym and don't go up and down and two communities get together. The problem that happens is, again, when they move and they come and they want to go to your school after that activity has taken place. Good question. Any other questions? Yes. Large school or big school? I mean, large school or big school? That was crazy. Large school or small school? Yeah, you guys, I had my 40-year class reunion, so yeah, the head's a little bit there, but anyway, go ahead. So in this situation I just had, this 7th grader had been attending elementary and now middle school as an open enrollment choice outside the district. This 7th grader still is considered their student. So you need to be careful, even though they've been there since elementary and middle school in feeder schools that feed into you, you need to make sure you know where they are really residing. Don't just assume that they're in your district because they're at a middle school in your district. Okay, so make sure you know where they're coming from. There is a bylaw basically for 8th graders. Most of you allow 8th grade participation. There is a bylaw that in order to move 8th graders up to in your district. If they do not live in your district, they cannot move up as an 8th grader to high school. So same type of situation. Okay. Then they're fine. They're fine. So stay away from them. You know, because some of them are just assume I'm going to go to, they're saying in 6th, 7th grader, you know, I'm going to go to, well, and they live in Carlsbad. You still have to make sure you know exactly where they live. There's another hand over here. Any other questions? Unless I answered it. Any others? Hey, that didn't come from my voice. That came from you guys. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. Charter school students are eligible in their home attendance zone school. Okay. Home attendance zone. So if there's a charter school that's not a member or a charter school that is a member, if they're a member of the association, we have some charters that are members. We have quite a few now. They need to play at their school. But if they don't have the sport, then they can play at their home attendance zone school. So just think home attendance zone in all of those. Homeschool, charter school, non-member private school. Just always think if they are not in your seat at your school and they're not at a member school, that they are home attendance zone. Always make sure you know what grade they're in, and especially with homeschool, and we joke about this, and you guys joke about this, as everybody knows, is get grades. Make sure you know what grade they are in. We have found out in about 2 or 3 cases, I'm looking at Scott Owen as my right-hand person when it comes to eligibility. As you guys know, Scott Owen. Scott and I have dealt with a lot of cases where all of a sudden they are 8th grade at a homeschool, and then they're 9th grade, but then all of a sudden they're 8th grade again. So you have to, you know, the parent at that point you need to ask the parent, what grade are they in? When the parent states they're in 8th grade, they are in 8th grade. You cannot veer from any of that, whatever the parent grade they say they're in. However, from that point on, don't let them go back and forth, because there are some parents that are doing that. Okay. Any other questions? Great questions. I'm going off the topic, so I don't have to just go by the slides here. I already did this one. Send parents to the athletic director. Do not engage in conversations. Okay, just make sure that they are. Out-of-season coaching. After this meeting, at 11:15, I have about 12 athletic directors coming to the office. We have started a committee. I asked the board of directors and the commission. The commission is made up of athletic directors. The board is made up of superintendents. There was a lot of things that we needed to start looking at. We have to change with the times. And so I wanted a committee of athletic directors to talk about, you know, some more scholastic, but classification alignment. And one of the things that we're really big talking about right now is out-of-season coaching. So we will begin that discussion to see where we go with out-of-season coaching. We met a couple months ago, and we talked about out-of-season coaching, and the charge from the committee was for my staff we looked at all 51 state associations, and I say 51 because every state plus the Washington, D.C. is an association. We looked at all 51 state associations as to what they do for out-of-season coaching. And I'm going to present that to the committee this afternoon so we can talk about it. I know a lot of you want us to get rid of out-of-season coaching. I was in your shoes there. I understand where you're at. It's not my decision. A lot of people think that I stand up and make the decisions. It's not my decision. I am paid to make sure that all the bylaws are followed. Okay? But it is actually you, the athletic directors, the superintendents, that it's their decision. Out-of-season coaching is a topic that we can spend a lot of time on. Is it good? Is it not? Where do we go with it? As some of you know, I've coached in the high schools, but also I have coached in the club world as well, coaching boys basketball. And I tell the athletic directors all the time is when I'm sitting there coaching, boys basketball AAU, and I look down there as to who's coaching the other thing and the crazy parent that's going nuts, over there with those kids, I worry a little bit of what type of influence the club world is giving to our education-based athletics. And so that's just a conversation we're having. So stay tuned, basically is what I'm saying. Stay tuned. Just want to let you know that that conversation is always evolving and talking about. Ironically, the majority of the 51 state associations all have some type of out-of-season coaching rule still. Okay, there was only about 7 states that were just wide open. You could do whatever you want. Other than that, there always was some rule in every state association. So it's still a little tight on that. As you know, Texas doesn't allow you to touch them at all. So those are the type of stuff we're looking at. Right now, out-of-season coaching, as you guys already know, most of you, 7.5 hours you get a week with your student athletes. That includes athletic, period. Monday through Friday. If you are on a 4-day week, that means Monday through Thursday. No weekends. But within that 7.5 hours, you can instruct, you can do whatever you want within 7.5 hours. This is in the off-season. Volunteer coaches are subject to the same thing. Where some of you as coaches try to do is you take your volunteer coach and try to make them the AAU coach. If you are going to have them volunteering and coming to your gym even once a week or doing stats or anything being a part of the program, they cannot be your club coach out of season. So make sure you have that separation between your program and what's going on in your program and the club world. So 7.5 hours. This does apply through 8th through 12th graders. Middle school does not have out-of-season coaching. Somebody asked me why. The committee that made these rules a few years ago about the 8th graders, the reason that we took out middle school out-of-season coaching is because we want these kids at that level, at 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, we try not to have them specialize. Allow them to go from one sport to the other and enjoy sports. Because soon enough, most of them are going to try to specialize. So that is the reason for that. That is the reason now the 8th graders, since they're going to be at the high school, may play at the high school, they can go up to the high school for out-of-season coaching, but the 6th and 7th cannot. Any questions? Yes. Okay, when I talk about out-of-season coaching, I'm not talking about tennis, golf, or spirit, or swimming. Okay, so they are year-round, so you can have access to them year-round. And so the others are like, why those sports? Well, before I got here in 2000, came on the staff in 2004, those sports always were year-round. And the reason they were year-round is because they're more of the sports where your coaches are not educators. Your coaches are coming from the golf course, the tennis. In order to get really good coaches at that time, they felt like they needed to kind of get into that club world for those sports. Now, that is something, actually, that our committee probably needs to talk about. We haven't talked about that in a while. So again, move with the times. So that's something we'll talk about. Any other questions? Uh-huh. Sixth grade on below. Sixth grade and below. Okay, you cannot, in out of season, you cannot just have a camp on a Saturday and then have your kids show up just to play. There's no open gyms. The weekend is in out of season, stay away. So if you're going to have a camp, make sure it's sixth grade and below only in that gym. And you cannot have your players help at the camp. Okay, so my suggestion is stay away from all those camps out of season. Summer is open. This is out of season. So when we talk about out of season, first day of school to the last day of school, or for those of you, I always say Memorial Weekend. Memorial Weekend, you're fine. That's when it really starts where it's opened up. But we do not regulate the summer. One thing about summer, though, that you need to be aware of, just like this little girl that I just had a story on, in the summer, before they start playing with you or coming to open gyms, make sure you know who's in your gym and where they live. Or if they're going to start playing with you in the summer on a club team or start your workouts or your weightlifting training, make sure they are enrolled in your. That's the best thing for summer. That's all we do look at for the summer. Scholastic eligibility. This is a new bylaw last year. In January or February, the Scholastic Eligibility Committee, the committee that the first semester. How was it? A lot of you, which I encourage, still do 6-week or 9 weeks grading. And that is fine. The reason for the semester eligibility is because a lot of kids, especially in our rural communities, are taking college courses, concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment courses, and you cannot get the grades at the 6 and 9 weeks. And that was the issue that was happening when we had people that were ineligible participating, and then we had to forfeit games. It was always due to a dual enrollment type situation or credit recovery. So that is why it went to semester grades. I highly encourage you, though, to watch those kids all the way through. Have your own school eligibility or team eligibility looking at these kids. You do not want those football players. They're eligible at the beginning, and then they are just not doing anything all year long because they don't have to worry about it through football season. Still stay on top of it on their grades. But when we talked about the committee, what has happened, though, we have more kids taking summer school now than we have ever before because they know they have to get those credits. And so that, on the flip side of it, we talked about making sure we had scholastic eligibility so that kids were gaining credits. The whole idea is to graduate kids. So in order to graduate, you need credits. And so that is one of the reasons that we went ahead and went to semester. Summer school, it's open. Not just one class, you can take multiple classes, but it has to be the exact same course if you are switching or trading a grade. Must be the exact one. Any questions? I know you guys, we've had this for a year now. Any questions that may have come up that you need answers from? Mm-hmm. Okay, the question was summer school. You have a kid that had an F, is taking summer school. It must be the exact same course. This kid is taking a course online. That's the exact same course. However, the course must be completed online at your registrar in your school before the first day of school. So if they do not finish the course by the first day of school, that grade will not change. You know, they can change it for their own transcript, but for athletic eligibility, that grade would not count to take away that F. Answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Cumulative provision is 10th through 12th. Okay, so where's 10th? Basically, all that is doing, saying 10th through 12th, is your ninth graders cannot have an F and use the cumulative provision after one semester of school. So when we say 10th through 12th, it's when you finish your freshman year, at the end of the freshman year, you're going into 10th grade. So you can do the cum on a ninth grader going into 10th grade in the second semester. You cannot cum a kid ninth grade first semester. Okay. Any others? Okay, the question was failing an AP class, not available in summer school. That is correct. There are some online AP courses, but some school districts do not take those. What we have done in our office, if a kid fails an AP class, we are allowing them to exchange it for a dual enrollment college course. So for example, Eastern New Mexico, UNM, CNM. So if they fail AP English 11, if they took the beginning English college course, then we would allow that to help. That's the way we're trying to help those AP students. But yes, if a kid fails an AP class, then it's going to be difficult. Now, if a student is taking an AP class and they fail it, that student probably, that might be their only F, and that would be a student that you probably can use a cumulative provision on, because if they're taking an AP class, I'm assuming their academics, there's above a 2.0. So, so some of that would help with the cumulative provision. Yes. Correct. We have a school district, if you didn't hear, we have a school district that had 16 kids in a small school ineligible at football. What I would say, I don't know whose fault that was. Actually, we probably need to look at kids in the eyes when it comes to this. But this is what we're talking about. We have to go back and remember that it's all about academics. Athletics is secondary. So monitor those kids throughout. Even football coaches, basketball coaches, they're your students from the fall to the end of the school year. You can monitor those guys all the way through. And I know a lot of you do that. So I do not know, he was just giving an example of what happened with this. But again, if they do have one F, we say no Fs, but actually there is an out for one F still. The committee did talk about getting rid of the cumulative provision, but the reason that they kept the cumulative provision in was because maybe one of those AP students that had an F, you know, they were all of a sudden, or the committee talked about, we have those teachers, there are some teachers out there that might, be hard and it'd be difficult to pass a chemistry class, that type of thing. So that's why they kept the cumulative provision in there. There was a question in the back. Yes. The committee is talking about, actually, at this point, we will be talking about that today, but there are some holes in our bylaws when it comes to clean slates, and 8th graders clean slates and 7th graders clean slates. So that is still being discussed because there are some issues. At this point, I would say from our last meeting, it sounds like, except at the 9th grade level, that the clean slate may be going away. That's kind of what the committee talked about. But again, the committee, just so you understand, the committee that is together will talk. That then will go to the athletic directors in a survey. Then if that athletic directors like it, then it will go to the commission, then it goes to the board, and then it goes back to the membership. So even though we're talking about it in a room, there's still a lot of process for something to take place. Okay. Did I answer your question? Okay. Again, 40-year high school reunion, so repeat. Okay? Oh, I got it. No, it does not. Reason being is they really don't have semester grades. I mean, a lot of middle schools don't, and they're not on a transcript. So you cannot, if you're going to cum a freshman, then you're just going to use the first and second semester of their freshman year, not the 8th grade year. Got it. Took me a while, but I got it. Thanks. Any others? Yes. Yes. There is a bylaw that says any school district can be stricter than NMAA bylaws. So a lot of schools, I would say probably about 50% of our schools are at 2.5, maybe a 2.5, or they have no F, no cum. They do not allow the cumulative provision at all. Or they're now doing 9th grade. They're doing 9 weeks also, not just semester. So you can do anything that's stricter in the bylaws for scholastic eligibility. Okay. Again, here's this, make sure, we talked about this on the online. As coaches, athletic directors, you may need to get to a point where you look at the kid in the face and the eye and you say, are you taking an online course? Coaches, it's your responsibility, not just the athletic directors, to know what your athletes are doing. A lot of students, because dual enrollment is free, they are signing up for online courses. Some of them are forgetting they even signed up for online courses, and all of a sudden there's an F on the transcript at the end, and they're going, well, I never took that course. Well, when you get in the computer and you sign up, then you took the course. So make sure you ask your kids what is going on. Any online, concurrent enrollment, college courses do count towards scholastic eligibility. My son right now is taking a lot of dual enrollment courses. He's going to be a senior, so I have him at C&M taking a lot of courses. And I was thinking in my head, here I'm thinking is, okay, so if he gets A's in this one, I can put it on the transcript, but if he gets a B in this one, I'm not going to put it on the transcript. And that's me as a mom in my head when I know rightly that all those courses are going on the transcript. So if I think that at home, thinking, okay, maybe we can pick and choose, then there's other parents out there doing the same thing. So just make sure you know what courses every one of your athletes is taking away from campus. The days are gone where you have to think that all your kids are walking the halls of your schools, because that's not happening. Kids are on your team that are homeschooled, charter school, private school, open enrollment, college courses. They're every which type nowadays. So gone are the days where you just think that they're in the classroom in your school. So make sure you know what's going on. Coaches, like I just said, it's not always the athletic director. They have a lot of programs they have to look over. So help them by figuring out and letting them know what's going on with your athletes. Questions? Yes, ma'am. Per program, per district. Program is up to you. I would talk to the athletic director. There are a lot of schools that want to make sure that every program does it the same, but you can do it different for every program. My suggestion to you is make sure the parents are aware that you are doing something different. Communicate way before the season so that you're going to take 9 weeks or 2.5 or whatever you're going to do. Just make sure you communicate and get out. But it could be by district, it could be by school district, it could be by your playing district, it could be by your school, whatever you would like. Okay? Now, as far as districts, there are some districts, not school districts, but your districts that you compete in, that do not allow seniors to play JV. Okay? That's stricter than us. We allow seniors to play JV if they are not transfer seniors. So those are bylaws that are stricter than we have. Examples. Open enrollment, we've talked about this. Open enrollment at the 8th grade, okay, does not mean you're recruiting. We've dealt with that. We're not going to go through that. But when you have those 8th graders playing for you, you need to make sure that they have an 8th grade participation form filled out and sent to our office, and a letter comes back to our office saying that they are okay. 8th graders playing up at the high school level, there must be a signature by a parent. The athletic directors are calling in these parents to sign. It is online, so they have to physically go in and sign that an 8th grader is playing. The reason for this is we need to make sure parents understand that once that 8th grader plays at the high school level, they are making their open enrollment choice. Any transfer after that would be considered under transfer guidelines. So that is the reason we bring them in. So coaches, make sure if you have 8th graders that this is done before they play. Also, I mentioned before, 8th graders must play in their home attendance zone school only. So if you are bringing them up, they must be in your district. Any questions? Yes, sir. Yes, all levels. So when I say 8th grades at the high school level, it's not just varsity, it's C team, JV, varsity. So if they're up at the high school level. This has been a topic, 8th grade participation has been a topic in almost every commission meeting that we have. You need to, and this is me, not executive director, this is me, the stuff that comes to my desk, and this is a personal opinion. Be very, very careful. This is just trying to help you. Those 8th graders, I don't care how good they are. Those 8th graders, a lot of them are 13 and 14-year-olds. And you are mixing them with 17 and 18-year-olds on a bus, overnight trips, every day. Be very, very careful, because the stuff that comes to my desk are from parents or things that have happened with 8th graders moving up too quick. They might be able to run that fast. They might be able to, we have right now somebody there's a 200-pound 8th grader that wants to play football up. 200-pound 8th grader is different than a 200-pound junior as far as physique and muscle tone and everything else and maturity. So just be real careful with that, and that's just some advice to you, because the stuff that comes across my desk can be some legal issues due to the fact that these kids are going up too quickly and mixing with older kids. Okay. Yes? Now, as far as NMAA, we don't sanction that program, so we are not involved in the rules and regulations of this USTA. There's a USTA program that does middle school and junior varsity here in the metro area. So for that program, we don't get involved with the rules and regs. However, I do know the USTA follows NMAA guidelines. So we do allow 8th graders to play up. However, you are going to be bound by APS guidelines, which do not allow 8th graders to play up. So your question that you just had is, I think it'd be better to talk to Kenny Barreras at APS regarding that USTA program. For us, we would allow 8th graders to play up. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we talked about this. Homeschool, that's the best thing to do. These kids that are not in your building, make sure in their home attendance zone school. That's the best thing. That is state law. I have parents saying that a homeschooler wants to play here and not play where they live, and they want to appeal. I do not have authority. I cannot appeal state statute. It is what it is. So you just need to start getting to the thought of they're in their home attendance zone school. Now, these bylaws, alternative schools and non-member private schools, those are NMAA bylaws. However, again, we're kind of putting them all together. That anybody that is not sitting in your brick and mortar building, they must be living at least in your attendance zone. Think of it that way. That's the easiest way. And if you ever have questions, if there's some doubt, make sure you call Scott or I, and we'll talk you through that. Physical. A new thing this year. Physical form, that's not new. After April 1st, beginning next year, there will be a universal physical form that every single school will be using. Right now, I would say 75% of you are using the NMA's physical form. Some others have their others that they're using. Beginning next year, everybody statewide will be using the same form. Make sure your students have insurance. Most of them do, but they need to make sure that they do have insurance on there. This part is new, number 3. There is a form, another form, and I know you're going, oh, another form. Guys, as you know, when you buy a house, you buy a car, and you're signing forever, that's because somebody has sued down the road somewhere. This consent to treat form, another form that needs to be signed, is to protect you. It is protect the trainers. It is to protect anybody that does the doctors that are working with your program. The consent to treat form is a form that the parents sign that gives the consent to treat. Now you guys go, well, we have something that's, we can go to the hospital and we have this form that goes with us. I understand you had this other form. The language in this form protects our trainers especially. We have students that are going from one school to the other and have an injury, and we have trainers that are very, I would say, leery. They're always going to treat, but we have some trainers that are very leery to treat from another team because they don't know if they have approval from that parent to actually treat that athlete. And so this form just protects everybody. So make sure that that is done. That starts this year. And then, of course, concussion course. Everybody needs to take the concussion course. I hear it all the time. Well, it's the same thing. Yes, it's the same thing. But in a court of law, for you to be able to say, I took the course in August 2019, it sounds a lot better than saying I took the course in August 2018. Because then they'll say, well, did you get refreshed? Did you refresh your mind? All the questions happen. So, yes, sometimes this is over and over and over again, but we have not put anything that doesn't protect you as a coach or them as a student athlete. Okay. Questions? Yes. Form and the course. Mhm. Any others? Yes. Every year. Take the course. Again, protection of you. For what you, so you understand the process, the National Federation of High School, which is our umbrella organization, they have, NFHS has a sports medicine advisory committee. And a lot of things come from them and trickle down to the states. And then the NMAA, we also have a sports medicine advisory committee. Anything like physicals, consent to treat forms, that has gone through the sports medicine on the NFHS, and it's gone through the sports medicine at the NMAA. So we have a lot of doctors telling us what is best and what are the best practices. So anything that we add in this regards, it has not come from me because I'm far from understanding all of that. It has come from above, and it's just to protect you guys. Yes? It is active this year. So make sure your fall athletes are having their parents sign it at their parent meetings that are going to be coming up here real shortly. Yes, the wording will be the same. It is a form online, yes. That's the one you need to use is a form online. So the physical form will all be universal next year. The consent to treat form is universal for this year. It's all the same. It is on the sports medicine website. And Scott's just telling me there's also a Spanish version of it online. So you need to, here, I'm going to turn this to Scott. Scott can answer some of these questions here.
Any other questions on the consent to treat form? And then we put all those forms, the physical packet's all been in Spanish, the consent form is in Spanish. There's always questions. Did you put one in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking homes? So those have both been turned into Spanish forms as well. But you can find both of those on our sports medicine website under pre-participation requirements. So you'll have the physical packet, which will be required April 1st, 2020, and then the consent form, which will be required this year for all your athletes. And again, as Sally mentioned, it's protection. I know it's another form. It's just doing our best to protect your schools, your athletic trainers, and then obviously making sure our kids have access to care when they're traveling without an athletic trainer. You'll just keep them on file. You just keep them on file. Yeah, we won't need them in our office. Any other questions on consent or the physicals?
Thank you, Scott. Mm-hmm. Correct. As long as, yes, that is fine. As long as, and I think you guys are aware around the pockets of the state where they're at, I think they can go anywhere, but then they go back, right? Okay, so yeah, you're fine. Team huddles. This was been voted on by the membership. This used to be basketball only, but because of some of the unsporting-like behavior that is going on, this is in every single sport. So coaches, you cannot go to the center and the court, the field, the diamond, the mat. Stay away. Stay in your own area. When you're huddling up, when you're running in to start warming up. The reason for this is we've really had some unsporting behavior, not just in basketball. Basketball, we've cleaned it up with this. We've had, stomping on a football field on the center on somebody's mascot. We've had going to the diamond in the middle and doing some chants. We've had it in wrestling. We've had it every which way. So the athletic directors did come to me. We went to the commission and the board. And so this is everywhere. And it's unsportsmanlike. And it's too bad, honestly. It's too bad that we have to make a rule because of unsportsmanlike behavior. So coaches, I know you do the best you can, but continue to be the leaders in that area. So we don't have to keep doing rules for this, but make sure that they know to stay away from that center. This is, again, let's move with the times. Third-party filming, when you go out and scout, use your cell phone. You're fine. Okay, before we had that bylaw, you cannot third-party film. Now, I don't expect coaches for you to take a tripod and sit up there and film everything. Basically, this is go back to old school where you go with your paper and you're going to scout just like you always do. But don't worry if you take out the cell phone and click here or click there and look at something. The reason we changed this is very hard to monitor. Our athletic director's having a hard time monitoring who's filming in the stands. Parents are filming in the stands. It's on Facebook, it's on Huddle, it's everywhere. You can get a film if you want to film. So this is new this year, so you can go ahead and film if you are scouting. Any questions with that? New bylaw, postseason. We had a bylaw in place a few years, the past years, past 10, 12, 15 years, where if you were a dual sport athlete, so if a soccer player and a football player were participating, or a baseball and a trackster they were doing two sports at once, that they must compete in at least a quarter of the contests in order to be eligible for state. And that has been going on for years. It is now that a student athlete must be, even if they're a one sport athlete, must compete in a quarter of the contests in order to be playoff eligible. There are some outs. An injured athlete that has been on your roster all year and all of a sudden they got eligible at the end, they are fine. A JV player, or you're bringing up some kids for the state tournament and they've been playing JV but they don't have a quarter of the varsity contest, those kids are fine. So these are the athletes that are varsity caliber athletes. They must participate in the quarter. Some of you are saying, well, why? Because what's going on is these kids, they're just getting them out they haven't competed at all, and all of a sudden they're at a district track meet and they're winning everything, or they haven't gone through participating, or they're displacing kids that have been in a program. For all you spirit coaches out here, this includes spirit. So you are not going to be able to take that wrestler and all of a sudden go from all girl to co-ed because you saw who was competing in what, and you were just going to grab some boys to put them in co-ed before state. It needs to be that you are competing in a quarter of the contest. So for spirit, at least there at least has to be one sanctioned competition that they need to be in order to be eligible for state. Any questions? Regular season, before postseason. So the district tournament starts postseason. So for tracksters, the district track meet begins postseason. So they have to be in a quarter before that district track meet. Other questions? In fact, okay, so the question is football. The reason that this bylaw was in place all these years was because we were mandating 9 weeks grades. And those football players were not eligible if they came out at 9 weeks to be eligible for postseason. They weren't going to get enough games in. So that's why it never went to the one sport athlete. Now that we have gone to semester grades, those football players need to make sure they're eligible at the beginning of the season in order to make it to the state, make it to the playoffs. That makes sense? They can. But with this bylaw, and it's by semester grades, they need to be eligible at the beginning. They should be doing summer school. If the school district is at 6 weeks. So those fall athletes, in like football or soccer, if you're waiting to the 9 weeks to get somebody eligible, they're not going to be eligible for state. That is the reason for that semester. We went to semester grades. That is the whole reason, is get these kids credit, get them in summer school if they're not eligible. And that's why we opened it up to 1, 2, 3, how many courses. Any other questions? Yes. Are they playing? Well, most of those kids are playing JV if they're not playing. So those JV ones are eligible to go up. They're going to need to get them in a quarter of the games. Basically, they need to be part of the team. We can talk about that one, but they need to get in a game, whether it's special teams, they need to get in a quarter of the contest. Well, if they're on the roster and they're suited out, and that's being on the team. Yeah, we're not going to go to minutes or whatever. But basically what this rule is doing, those kids are just coming out and displacing kids right before state. That's what the idea of the rule is. So those kids that aren't playing, like they're bench warmers, they're still part of the team. Sorry, my son was a bench warmer. I can say it. My son was a bench warmer, now he's doing esports. So hey, we're good. I own that one. Yes. Well, we'll have to talk about those individual things. It would kind of be sad that a kid runs and runs and trains and doesn't get a track meet when it's you know, track. I don't know. I just feel like, but I understand what you're saying. But so in other words, you're saying so they can run in the district meets. So those kids that they've been training, and you're just going to put them in the district meet. They would not be eligible. That's the idea. No. They need to be a part of the team. Okay? So this is stopping those tracksters that are coming out a week before and then they're displacing everybody that's been working out since February. Or that's what this whole idea is. They need to be a part of the team. Okay? Any others? Yes. It's semester grades. The idea of the scholastic eligibility is to get these kids eligible at semester. So if they are not eligible and you're waiting to the 9 weeks to get eligible, and if there's not a quarter of the contest, they would not be eligible for postseason. I don't know your schedule. I can't see where your 9 weeks finishes and how many games you may have. They may not be. But the idea of this whole thing, and I know there's a lot of rumbling about that, guys, the idea of the scholastic eligibility by the committee and what you voted on, these kids need to get credits at semester. They have a chance to go to summer school all summer long. And so, and they also have, if they have 1F, they also have the cumulative provision to get them eligible. So the kids that are not eligible for football right now either did not go to summer school or they don't have the cum above a 2.0 to get rid of that 1F. Or they what? But then is that the 1F though? So that they have a 2.0. Now, with scholastic eligibility, so this was a question. There is other ways. Okay? There is a question here. The question is, well, what about that kid who is below, who is a 2.0 kid and failed an elective, and there's not a summer school class that repeats that? For all that you don't know is any summer school class that you take that's not exact, you still can use that for scholastic eligibility. It would not replace that F, but if you took some summer schools to raise your GPA above the 2.0, then you can still be eligible by the cumulative. So in those cases, some kids have taken PE or another elective to go on the transcript. Now their GPA is above a 2.0 and they can have the F and they would be able to be cummed. That's the question, and that's, somebody said, I think we're more worried about kids playing games than passing classes. And that was what the scholastic eligibility thing was to get kids eligible. So, okay. Seediness election. District ties. This is a change, coaches. A little bit of a change. For basketball and volleyball, because there was a district tournament, if you were tied in the regular season, the seeding and selection committee could use either head-to-head or the criteria points to seed one above the other if you were tied. In the other sports, the tiebreaker procedures dictated I'm first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and that was the order we had to take you in when it came to seeding and selection by the committee. So what has now been changed is the tiebreaker procedures will be used as far as where you finish in district, but if two teams are tied in the regular season, the committee could take one over the other based on them being tied in regular season. Does that make sense? An example, soccer. Two tied teams. The only thing that separated two tied teams was goal differential by 1 goal. One team was seated above the other team based on the tiebreaker procedures. However, they tied in regular season, but the tiebreaker put one team in front of the other. This happened this year. The second team was a nationally ranked high school team, but they lost by goal differential and they were second. The other team won district by the goal differential. So the seeding committee had to take the first team and seed them before we could get into get the nationally ranked team in the tournament. So what happened in this case, and these are just examples, what happened by rule, this nationally ranked team was seeded 8th because we couldn't get this team in until about 7th. So once we got that first place team in, then of course we put this other team in. They were tied in regular season. Had we had this bylaw, we could have taken one above the other. It didn't matter. Now what took place now is this team is seeded 8th, and the team who was seated first is all excited because they got the #1 seed. However, in the quarterfinals, guess who they're playing? The nationally ranked team. So we had to look at this, and committees and commission and board had to look at it to make the seeding a little bit fair. We will use a tiebreaker of where you finish in district. Now, when you go to the criteria point finish in district, that one team finished first, and the nationally ranked team finished second on that criteria point. However, we were able to take them either way. So that's the reason for this, so it helps all sports. Questions? We talked a lot about this at the beginning, following a coach. Make sure that you realize that following a coach begins that summer going into the 7th grade. So that's what I was telling coaches, to making sure that those kids are in your district or they are enrolled in your school district before you get them into open gym, so on and so forth. We have had some problems where kids are now, and it's crazy to think that this is going on, but you guys are out there, you're the practitioners, you understand it. The following the coach is now happening in the middle school, where they're following they see the high school coach, they're working with this high school coach, so now what they're going to do is they're going to follow the coach in the middle school so that they could, following a coach rule is to sit out for 1 year. Well, I'm going to sit out my 8th grade year because this school district allows 8th grade participation, and then be eligible 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So they're coming to following the coach earlier now, so they would be eligible 9th through 12th grade. New bylaw has just passed. The following the coach in the middle school, you will still be out your 9th grade year. No matter where that following the coach happens, if it happens at the middle school, they're still going to be out a year at your high school. So it's just bringing it back a little bit sooner. Questions? Scrimmage, new definition. You must practice 5 days. It's not 5 practices, so we're not going to do 3 a days. You must practice 5 days before you scrimmage. So your scrimmage, you start on Monday practice, your first scrimmage will not be, for most of you, till, bless you, well, mostly till Saturday. So don't schedule anything in between. A scrimmage is not considered a practice. You need to practice with your team before you get on a court with another team or the field. So that is just a new definition to clean that up a little bit. Basketball coaches, you won't have that issue this year because you don't start on Thanksgiving week. So that first scrimmage will be Saturday. So with that. The calendar this year works with what the idea was, because basketball starts, I think, on November 18th. It's not Thanksgiving weekend. However, the following weekend is where our state championships is on Thanksgiving weekend. So that overlap for those football teams that are going to the finals is only a week there. So that was what we were trying to do, is trying to help with a dual sport athlete. Rules clinics. Years ago, for those of you who have been coaching a while, we used to do rules clinics where we would go out to the region and we'd have face-to-face rules clinics. At the rules clinics would also be officials there. And it was a really good, you guys are going to laugh when I say bonding experience with officials. It was a really good experience, actually, to get the officials and the coaches in the room at the same time listening to rules. And coaches able to ask officials questions and so on, the dialogue that was happening. And we lost that. We lost that when the superintendents had told us that they wanted these online, and we understand it. It was when that we took a turn with the economy, and they didn't want to send coaches out on the road. And I know it's difficult, coaches, to go to practice. I got to get on the road. I got to go here instead of going home with your family. But we really, the athletic directors, the commission, and the board felt it was vital that we start back to get the face-to-face situation. Now, what we are doing to help a little bit, it's going to be on an every other year rotation. So you will see what's in person and what's not in person. So, for example, fall in person, volleyball and soccer. You were able to do that here. I think you'll be able to do it tomorrow here, some of you that are here, or you did it today. But then if people are not here, we will be at the regional sites, and those dates are on the website. Fall online, football, cross country is online. So you're going to go through the same thing. Now, the difference this year online is the rules clinic. We shortened it. It must be finished by August 15th, not August 30th. Reason for that is because feeling like coaches should have the rules clinic done before they even have their first game. And what was going on August 30th, most of you were jumping on August 28th, then you already had 2 games. So that is the whole reason. So it's short now. August 15th is going to be your date. Winter in-person basketball, Spirit Coaches, October 19th. That is mandated. That is in Albuquerque. That is your in-person rules clinic on October 19th. Online, swimming and diving and wrestling. Wrestling will still have their Albuquerque rules clinic that they always have, but then if you don't go to the Albuquerque one, you can do it online. In the spring, softball and golf will be face-to-face. Online is baseball, track and field, and tennis. The following year, those will flip. So it's every other year that you're going to expect to be the in-person. That way we get face-to-face with you. Questions? Just a reminder, we talked about concussion course. Reminder about Senate Bill 137 and 38. Just make sure you're watching these kids. Watch your star athlete like you would watch your other kids. And what I'm saying there, it's the reversal. It's because the star athlete, we're going to make sure they don't have a concussion. But this other one, we are really looking and doing the right protocol. This whole thing is about safety for kids. And I know it's difficult. Again, we just said about winning games and playing games. We got to go back to concussion with safety for kids. So make sure, even if your star athlete may be out 10 calendar days, make sure you're holding that athlete out. It's all for the best for them. I don't think I need to go through concussion. I think we've drilled that for the past 3, 4, 5 years. Crowd control. A school is responsible for the conduct of its teams, coaches, students, and fans. As we did last year, I can invoke penalties. As you know, last year we had 2 situations where we didn't have fans in the stands. In 2 situations, we took 2 steps forward. I really believe in the summer we take 1 step back, and then we got to take another 2 steps forward next year. We're not going to stop. And when I say we take one step back, it's because the club world has different beliefs than we do as education-based athletics. Also, there's some things that happen. There's not as much control in the summer as there is during the season, some oversight. But we're going to take 2 steps forward last year, and we're going to continue going. This has been difficult. I'll just tell you, last year was probably one of the most trying years I had, and it had nothing to do with, things that we wanted to do or that I couldn't handle. It was trying because you could see what was going on out there and some of the behavior that was going on. We were really trying to focus. Our athletic directors did a really good job being there and helping. But some of the things that came to our office, it was very difficult to deal with, to see that people are acting like that. Coaches, sometimes you are on the road by yourself. You have your assistant coaches, there's no administrator, there's nobody but you. And that puts a big burden on you as well. But you need to start from the beginning. You need to start in your preseason meetings what you expect from your parents. Because it's usually not the kids, it's the parents that are crazy. And so, yeah, they're crazy. And the reason they're crazy is because they think Johnny and Susie, going back to what we said, are going to be D1 athletes. So they're just so into it, and they're living through their kids. You guys understand that, and it wears on you. And if it wore on you, it wore on me, and I want to help you in this area. Start the tone early when it comes to sportsmanship. And all I can tell you is I will support you 100% in this office. We had kids coming all the time and coaches coming. And yes, I think it's the next slide. Oh. There is a new bylaw, battery. When a student is ejected, as you know, they sit out one game, they take the sportsmanship course. We do have a new bylaw here that the student that has battery. What is battery? Any physical harm on another person is considered battery. Would I consider spitting on somebody battery? Yes. So we didn't use the word fighting. We use the word battery because that is anybody who does physical type harm to somebody else. It could even be if it's downright emotional or mental or something, that's what battery is going to fall under. In this situation, the student athlete will be seen in my office. Usually who comes in my office is the coach and the athletic director. But we need somebody to come with the student athlete. A lot of times, sometimes the parents came, and I don't have a problem if the parents want to be there as well. And that student is not going to be just one game out. They're going to be out 15% or greater of the game limitation that we have set forth. So example, in football, if you have 10 games, 15% is 1.5. They will be out 2 games. If they have battery in a football contest, some type of battery. Basketball, just do the math. You do 26 times 0.15. That goes out. Those basketball players, I think it's 4 games that they will be out if there's some type of battery. The reason we went to percentages because it was not fair to go blanket 2 games, 3 games, when we have different amounts of games going on between sports. It's not fair to the football players if we say 2 games and then the basketball players get 2 games out. It's not the same thing. So that's why it went to a percentage, 15%. They also need to do the sportsmanship course. Now, the one thing with battery, you have an incident of battery and they are out 15%. If they are ejected again, now, I am not saying ejected due to battery. I'm saying if they are ejected again, then they are done. So make sure that you talk to your student athletes about this. Now, how many battery incidences did I have last year? Out of all the sports, probably, which is I think a lot, I probably had in my office 8 kids that were some type of battery. And that is just fighting or spitting or just doing things that should not have happened. So make sure that you're aware of this. Again, another reason we just need to go back and realize what we're all about is teaching education-based athletics. Yes? What? So is this just strictly soccer? I know, is this for soccer? At that point, we're not going to automatically say battery, okay? And in those instances that I took forth, I first received film. We'll look at film. I've also received, talking to the official type. A hard foul probably would not be battery. You indicated soccer, and soccer actually has stricter penalties than this when it comes to the hard reds, where they're out 3 games automatically. Just because they get a hard red does not mean it's going to be battery. So we have to look into the whole scenario before I can say, yes, that's battery, that's not battery. So it's not on a whim that we're going to say you're automatically out. We will investigate before we really do call that a battery situation. We had some fights this year, and what we did is we took film, and it said, well, what if you don't have film? Well, my gosh, if you don't have a parent that's with their cell phones, I don't know, we're in the dark ages, but we usually always have film. Ironically, there was a situation where there was some fighting going on, and no parent all of a sudden was deleted it on their phone. So I had to go to the other side to get the film. But we will investigate before we say it's battery. So it's just not going to be on a snap like that. Okay. Like I said, I only had 8. The situations you had, I probably could have had about 20, but we really made sure we looked into what really was the cause, the root cause, what was going on. I'm going to give you a story. What time is it? Here. Oh, I'm getting close, huh? I'm going to give you a really quick story because I'm almost done here. We're talking about sportsmanship. I brought a kid in that basically was battery at the beginning of the year. And when I brought this kid in, his mom came in. And at this time, we talk a lot, and I try to get to know the kid, and I ask the kid about their background and their family, and just trying to get the kid at ease. In this whole conversation, there's usually some underlying reason why a kid is going to just wail on somebody, or they're going to spit on somebody or something. There's got to be a reason. So going back to the education days, trying to get this out of the kid, we had a kid that was a senior, and his lifelong dream was to go to the military. Well, he's bipolar. And you cannot be on medication and be accepted into the military. The mom knew this. So what did the mom do? Without doctor's orders, took him off the medication to get him out of his system so he could try to get into the military. In the meantime, he was off his medication, and that is when all of this action happened on the football field. And so I talked to the mom. I try to relate it back to myself, where my oldest son was colorblind. He wanted to be a pilot, and he couldn't be a pilot because he was colorblind. So he had to take a different path. So I talked to the mom about what path should he take. If he's bipolar and needs to be on meds, maybe it's not the military, it's a different path. But in that situation, it was because the parent took him off the medications that we had this incident. But unless I would have talked to him and got to know who he was and told a story, and at that point then, I can see where this kid really is. Is he safe to go back on the football field, or is he not safe for the safety of all the other kids? A week later, I had a kid where I actually met with the special ed department because this kid was in the special ed, a BD kid in special ed. And so we talked about, actually they put stuff in his IEP to help him through athletics. So when we bring these kids in, it's not just we're going to punish them. Actually, we may be able to help them in the long run. And so that's what the whole idea is. So just a couple stories that happened last year. I am running out of time. And I think that was it. So, hey, that was perfect timing. I didn't think I'd be able to talk that long because we were supposed to have 2 other speakers, but here I am talking forever. So, any other questions that I have before we end? Yes, sir. Good question. Somebody's talking about diabetes and insulin. What I would suggest you do is you get with the nurse at your school, and you need to make sure you're going through some type of training with the athletic director, and you know what you need to do just in case something happens on the bus with this kid. So before you have that kid go on there, make sure you know how to treat every single kid. The other one that's going on, and this is another long topic, and Buster's standing right there, so I won't talk, is coming up from NMHSCA that we're going to have to deal with is this medical cannabis. You know, that's going to come up. I don't want to go into that discussion, but it's coming across my desk already. So as we change, we're changing times. I just promise you that the NMAA will change with the times and we'll make it work. So thank you very much for everything.
All right, we'll start up at 11 o'clock with the next keynote.